let's get started. We're going to be using eyeshadow pastels and Poscas and white ink and stencils on this project. So we've got a lot of beads we're going to do, and I'm going to get started. I'm on the frosted side, and I'm going to do all the frosted side first, and then we're going to be stamping on the shiny side. So I'm going to be using lots of kind of just the colors in this palette. Notice I can take this pink and this yellow and make an orange. Some of my colors I need to clean up a bit. My sparkly colors. I'm going to do that with either a paintbrush or a Q-tip. There. Get the schmutz out of those. Just keep going. have my pastels on. Take a clean sheet and get another clean sheet. I'm going to wipe my fingers. I always keep a wet ones or damp rag to keep my fingers clean when working with pastels, clean and dry. And now I'm going to flip these over, and we're gonna go on the shiny side, and I'm gonna show you a little fun technique. We're gonna get our pastels out, and for this, we're gonna be primarily working with these iridescents on this palette, and ink, the white ink for some of this. So I'm gonna clean off any, getting down to the dregs in my palette here. Clean off the colors. And I've got a soft, bristle, inexpensive brush here for some of this. So one at a time, I'm gonna work with this, and you will have a little mini white palette. I've got my bigger palette that I'm inking up because bigger, older ones dry out fast, at least in my climate. And then I'm on the shiny side. And if your stamp is juicy, you'll see more stippling going on, and just pounce enough to even that out. It can just kind of blend and smooth in the more you pounce. And I'm gonna watch that a little bit because I want it a little tacky for what I'm gonna do with it. Let's make sure I'm on the shiny side. Don't want to get too ahead of myself. Going over it quite a bit because I want it to smooth out. Now I'm going to take the iridescent and just brush it over. Don't want the ink too wet because it'll blend it. I just want it tacky enough that the iridescent adheres to it. And if you want, you can do the non-iridescent that I just am gonna showcase it more with the iridescents in this simply because we have them. So, and notice I was only doing the tips of these. And I'm not gonna do that on all of them, just on some of them. Some I'll just leave all white, meaning white ink dots. The more you pounce, the more you blend in the ink. Now I might blend some of this together with the matte on my palette here to get more of an orange. And it'll really show up. It doesn't show up when the petal is orange behind it, but look how it shows up on other colors. I'm going to come in here with some green and go with the aqua. See what happens. There. Okay, got to make sure those dry. And I'm going to get a clean palette, a clean paper. And as I said, I won't be doing the color tinting on all of them, just some. This one I'm just going to leave. This one, now, see how this doesn't fit? It's going to be okay. I'll show you how we're going to deal with it. I'll do these petals first. And then I'll line it up with the stencil. I can see the pattern there, and just come over and do these. And then there, just doing the center of this. Then I might I've got to make sure that my ink is dry enough that I don't smear it. If you think you're smearing your white, that means you have to let it dry a little. It depends on the humidity and dryness of the climate you're doing yours in. Okay, we will continue. And not all of them, as I said, will be colored. One's I'm going to leave. This one I'm going to leave white, just white. While I'm working on these, the ones that I've done can be drying. Let's see, what color do we want to come in with this? Make sure my white is dry enough for this, and I'm just lightly dusting it. Putting a little yellow and a little green in that. Doing some tips, some centers. And then I have the rest of these. Make sure your paintbrush is dry. I mean, clean of, not dry, clean of other colors that you previously used. Just out in the perimeter of that one. There we go. And just a couple more. And let's see. On these smaller ones, it doesn't show up much because they're just, especially the thin petals, you can see that just is just not enough surface for us to play with. And then I have one here that has very limited color, so I'm going to add a little more color of that poor little thing that didn't get. There we go. Flip it over. And okay, now I'm going to make sure that those are dry enough. There's also this option with them. We place them all down here. Let's get a clean piece of paper. You can blot. So we're laying them all down here. I'll have to do these in 2 sections. And this will be to pick up any excess inks or anything that are the powders. I don't know if I can get them all on here. And get a clean, I have lots of clean scrap paper and blot. And make sure that this is dry before we go into shrinking or coloring or anything. Okay. Now we're going to come in with some Posca markers. This is this brand. And always check so it doesn't puddle on your piece. And you can put any kind of patterns that you want on here. I'm going to keep it really simple. And I have enough laid out here that I'll be doing different colors, but right now I've got this aqua out, so I'm going to be using the aqua. And showing you how I color with the Poscas, and I'm going to do the rest in fast motion so you don't have to sit here for hours watching me. So I have these done, and I have more over here to do, and I will do these in the same manner, and I will do these off camera, and then I will show you my whole collection, but you get the idea here in how I'm doing this. And then I let these totally dry. This is the second batch I did. So I've got the Poscas on the frosted side, and we're ready to shrink. We're ready to start shrinking, and we're going to be using the orange mold for this, and this is called the petal mold. And when you shrink these are what I call kind of delicate petal beads. These are the Marcia DeCoster designs that she did for me. And she's a well-known bead artist. And you can get these on my site. These can have a tendency when they're shrinking to, when they're curling up and wiggling down, to touch each other and then fuse. So what I'm going to show you is how to not have that happen. And when you're shrinking, I also want you to be aware that you can put the Posca side down with the pastels and have the dots in the center of your bead, in the enclosed center interior, or you can do the reverse and have the Poscas and the pastels on the interior bead and the polka dots on the outside. So you may want to do some both ways, or be consistent and do them all with the dots on the outside or Poscas on the outside. You decide. I'm not going to show all of these beads shrinking. I'm basically going to show you a real small one and the larger ones that are temperamental to give you an idea of how to shrink these delicate petals. So the key is to keep the heat gun, on the outside perimeter of the beads. And that's because the material wants to follow the heat. Even though it's shrinking in, it still wants to resist that and pull towards the heat. So in doing so, it does keep, while it's doing that, it does keep the beads from touching each other. And I know that doesn't make sense when you visually look at it, but it's chemically the way things that heat up, like solder, like the shrink plastic, things move towards the heat, just kind of like air rises. Things in, things, chemical things and whatever, tends to move towards heat. So that's the principle we're using here. So I'm going to go around the perimeter, and then you'll see me individually heating the beads. See where my heat gun is? This is how it's going to be when I'm shrinking. So it's nice if you go straight down like this, but I'm going at an angle so that you can see it shrinking. And this is a larger bead, so it's going to take a little bit more time to get to the temperature where it'll start to shrink. I'm out there around the perimeter. Gonna hit some of these individually, see how they start to go down. Or in. Jed, I'm keeping my heat outside. There, watch, see how it curls out? Because it wants to follow that heat, even though it's pulling in. And then if I get one that bends kind of the way I don't want it to, I can gently move it. So I want to make sure all of them are done moving on their own accord. And that is how you keep them from touching. then I'm coming down with the petal mold, and this had multi-petals on it, and this mold has 6 indentations, and there were a lot more than 6 petals, so we're going to get a real irregular look that kind of mimics nature and petals in flowers where the wind or they kind of organically flow. There we go. So let that cool. I'm going to blow on it. And there I have the white on the outside and the colors on the inside. And this one I'm going to do the other way with the Posca on the inside. Wipe off any residue that transferred. Posca's on the outside, white on the interior of this, and the same thing. My heat gun is pretty close to the beads. So I'm out here, each individual bead, petal I mean. And that's how to be successful with that. With delicate petaled, multi-petaled beads. And then when it's still warm, notice how while it's cooling, if I want to make any adjustments, I can also blow on it to set it up, and more blowing on it, and there's the different looks. Okay, so I will do one more. I'll do this one here. White on the outside on this. White dots. Want you to get the idea here. There. Blowing on that. And there we have it. There we go. So do all of your beads like that. Now I'm going to do the little one, because the little one, it's tiny, and if you press it all the way into the mold, it'll be really tight. So I'm going to show you that you can do this, and then you don't have to press all the way in. You can just press till about there, and you'll have more of a open petal bead with this tiny one. And you can press it to the point you can see where I am there, and if it's still warm a little bit, I can press a little farther. These cool very fast because they're tiny, and that gives you more of a real undulating open feel. Now if you want to press all the way down, it'll be really tight and closed up. So go ahead and do your beads. Ready to start assembling, and I've got my fire line cut, and let's say that's about 6 inches, so I cut about 1 foot. And the first thing I'm going to do is start with my largest bead, and then I'm going to set aside 2 beads to flank it. Okay, so that gives me this one to put in the center, and then a 3rd one to put in here. So this is probably what I'm going to do for this one. And then the 2 that'll flank it, I'll pick 2 medium beads. I'm going to make sure that I have a mixture of the looks of the dots and the Poscas. And I want to show up close. Do you see, can you see in the camera the iridescent that kind of happens when we put that shimmer on the white? Anyhow, kind of hard to see on the camera. So I've got these two that I will flank with. And let's see, maybe this one here. And not sure I'm going to use this one. I said you might have extra, not sure. But out here, well, wait a minute. Gonna make sure. So let's start with our focal bead. We've got this here that I'm going to use as my focal bead. So I've got 3 stacked on that one, and then to the left and right of it, I will have these 2, and then I want 2 smaller ones. So I'm gonna switch that out. I'm gonna switch these guys out and go a little smaller with my pieces in here. Okay, so something like that, and something like that. And this is probably one I won't use because it's just too big. Told you there would be extra. So let's look at what we have here. Then I'm going to so I've got this laid out right there. These 3, then these 2, and then these 2, and then up here I'll put these 2, and then I have some, and then possibly another 2. I'm missing a bead. It flew somewhere. There'll be another one that I can put right there. Okay? So let's get started. I took a still shot and showed you in the last, just before this, my layout. I've got 2 and 1, 2 and 1, and then I did line up 4 if I choose to use it that way, then 1 small one in between, 2 and 1, and 2 and 1. So we're going to move these out of the way. These are beads to pick from. And we're going to be working with this one first. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I've got all these beads that I can play with, and I want to put a long kind of stamen in here. So I'm going to add a tiny blue bead. I'm putting this in the saddle right here. And then I've got a needle, so at anytime I'm going to pick that up and use that, but I'm starting out without a needle. And this is my 6-pound fire line. Okay, so I'm going to play with this and see how it looks. So I'd start with that. And I'm not going to put anything between this. I'm not putting the needle on because I just want to see how this looks. A little saliva always helps. See where we're going with this. The uniformity of these beads all done in this kind of similar color palette and the same dots brings it all together as one piece because we're doing a lot of texture with our layering on this and stacking. So we have to look at that and see what we think of that. And I'm not sure that I really want that one in there. I'm not sure it's really enhancing it. So that's what you will do. You will edit. So I'm going to leave it out. And you might use it somewhere else. Set it aside. And I like this look better, okay, for what I'm going for. Then I'm going to put this little white sequin on and a bronze bead cap. And it might be time to put my needle on. So this means I'm going to pull one of these out. All right, I pull the tail out, put it under this little white bead. And if I could have done it all by hand, I would have double threaded it, but I will just double string it. Come on, go on there. Okay, there we go. And so I'm going to pull this tail up a bit. So I've got a shorter tail, bronze, and then it usually takes about 7 to 8 of these little green beads, and these are not Miyoki beads, so they're kind of, I like to say, instead of poorly made, I like to say they're whimsical because they're not all perfectly uniform like a Miyoki or a Toho bead. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what we do is put this on. We come back down through our whole collection. If we've got good eyesight, down through our whole collection, down through our tiny itty bitty blue bead. Okay. Bypass the blue bead. Go on up through the orange bead. Up through the orange bead, up through our entire sequence, up through all of our green beads. And I probably should have pulled myself more of a tail. I'm coming up through this. I'm going to have to cinch all this in. So coming up around, coming down through this, and we're going to meet at our tail down there, and it'll have been double strung. And if you have enough thread, which I don't on this, if you made a longer stretch than 12 inches, you can go all through this sequence again. But this is 6 pound, so in doubling it up is 12 pound. That 12 pounds is enough to hold this together. Then we're coming out here where our tails meet under this white bead, this white sequin. Here's our 2 tails, and we're cinching. We're cinching, pulling nice and tight, and then we're tying a knot. So around, and a surgeon's knot, around that loop again, pull tight, tie in, and you know, if you've watched me before, I usually do 3 or 4 of these. Surgeon's knot, so under and around again, and pull tight, and the 3rd time, pull tight, and a fourth, because this is our big pendant. This is our centerpiece. Around again. And then I take my line, my fire line cutter, and I've got my first piece on there, and that's really cute. Okay, now we'll be going for the flanking ones. So we're ready to do the next one, and what I am going to show you this time is how to do it just with the needle and thread and no hand stringing. And we're doing our big selections first, our big beads, and these little beads that we have set out here in our sequence will be added later if we feel it needs it. So with your fire line, last time I cut it 12 inches, cut about 14 inches. This requires a little bit more fire line. And then we're going to put our needle on, if we can find our needle. And I'm looking for the needle. There it is, my poor bent needle. Get the tail out of that. There's always, whenever I'm teaching a class, some kind of craft boo-boo on my finger, okay? You know, knife or whatever. So I bring these two tails up together, and I'm going to tie a knot in those because I want them to stay together. Okay. There's advantages to doing both ways. This one here requires you to know where you're going to hide your knots, and I'm going to be hiding those knots under a sequin. So I've got my sequin, and I put on my bronze bead, and then I'm going to string on 8 of these. And I've already pre-selected colors that I'm going to do on this one, the last one I showed you. And this is what I'm talking about right here. Be careful that this doesn't happen. You could put this back on, but this is what you have to be mindful of. Okay, this tail coming undone. So I'm going to try to be really mindful of that. And I come up under that and down through this sequin and bead cap. Okay, there. Got that. And then I've got my little tail. I don't want to lose that. Add my beads. Lots of wiggling around so that tail can get lost. And adding this. Adding the things that I chose. And the last is the little blue stopper bead. We put that, whoops, no, I wanted to put a little yellow. Did I get the yellow bead? No, I didn't. I want to take that blue stopper bead off. Sorry about that. I wanted this little yellow bead on there. Then the blue stopper bead. These tiny itty bitty ones, 15s. Okay, there. Then I bypass that blue, go up through my sequin, and there my thread is doubled. So I've got 12 pounds on there. And I don't have to follow my bead path. And I kept this from coming undone. And then I'm just going to tie one knot. I'll do my surgeons in a minute. Cinch that up. Then come around here with my surgeons. I can cut my needle off if I want it. Come in with my surgeons. Put my surgeon on this side so I'm not dealing with my needle. Around that loop twice. And then around it twice. So, except for this tail, being mindful of the tail. This is a little simpler and easier way to do it. It's just got to be mindful of the tail, and it takes more fire line. So let's cut that off. There, so there's your two styles, and I'm going to repeat over here the same thing. I'm doing this, and I'm probably going to repeat, I think, you can play with it. You don't, if you want different little stamens in there, there's all sorts of different colors to play with. So these can all be different, or you can choose to make this identical, the flanks identical. It's totally up to you, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do this one the same way I did this one. So I put this one on the same way that I put this one, in the same little sequence down here. And so what I'm gonna do is show you again. So I'm picking a sequin. I've threaded my needle, tied a knot in it, and a bead cap, tiny bead cap. And 8 green beads. And then putting it around my bronze connector link, down through the hole, down through the bronze bead and through the sequin. And then I had, I have this selection here, and then I've chosen the blue bead and an orange bead and a little blue bead there. Bypass that blue bead, come up through my sequence, meet right here. My tail didn't come undone. Tie the first knot to cinch that really tight. Tie a second one with the surgeon's knot. The loop goes around a couple of times. Pull tight. So I've got 2 on there. Surgeon's knot, this is number 3 under the sequin, and number 4. Around and around. And tight, and then cutting off my fire line. And you can always put a little super glue on your knots. So here we have our look. And what happens with this when it lays on your garment, on your chest, it comes forward like this. So that's the whole idea with this one. Now I'm going to do this one the same way that I did this one. So I have all 5 of my focus beads on in their graduated sizes, and now I'm going to do filler beads in here, and I'm going to do little ones. So I'm going to start, I'm going to just do things the same way. You've got a bunch of little ones that you can play with, and we'd kind of laid those out in that still shot. And so same way, except our holes aren't as big here, so I can go down to a smaller sequin. And I'll be hiding the knot under that. So I've got my my line threaded, and I'm putting on the bronze So there's a continuity of design here that's happening with my choice of sequin colors. I didn't want, there's a lot going on this, so I chose kind of white sequins to match the white dots and all this uniform bronze to tie in with this bronze piece and to keep those all uniform. That's so the eye doesn't get overwhelmed because it is a very busy piece. So we're putting 8 on because 8 is what needs to go around the bronze connector. I'm kind of holding my tail there so it doesn't get out of line. And then I am putting it between, this is my large one, and then these 2 on the side. So I'm going to be putting that in between here. Come up, go down through the sequin and the bronze bead. I'm holding that tail. Whatever works for you. You could put a piece of tape on that and it wouldn't come off, or one of your beads, they make little stoppers on there for bead lines so that doesn't happen. I don't have those, so I just have to risk it. Little blue. And let's see, what do I want to do? A little orange and a little blue. Bypass the little blue, go down through the orange. You can do anything you want with this. This is what I'm choosing to do. Pull, cinch that tight. Get any gaps out of it, tie our knot off. Just a single, that's what I use to pull that tight. And then I do my surgeon's knot around and around. So that's 2. Under that sequin, hide that knot. And then around and around. Tie again. And then I do it again. Around, around, and tie it off. Whatever works for you. There, then we cut our line. And we can look and see what we have. So when it lays down these little guys, see how they work as little fillers in there? Just kind of little random fillers. So I will be putting one over there, and I will do it in the same color sequence. And the same way I did this one, I'll be putting between this big one and this one. So here's our little cluster, and it has a lot of movement, and it's just gonna look fun any way it lands because we've got lots going on with it. So next we're gonna get our faux suede out, and you're going to measure, you're gonna fold it over you've got 2 pieces and you're gonna fold those over in half. And then you're going to put that up to your neck and find out where you want your pendant to fall. It will be on these loops. So I've measured mine, and I want to cut off that's about 2.5 inches. So I've lined those up because these are even and I'm cutting. And next, I've got to fish these little guys through this hole. So this is where you want to use your pliers to fish it through and pull. Get both of these through. Okay, there they are. And then we don't want to leave them just unfinished looking like that. So now we have our rubber O-rings. And I'm going to put those on. And they should fit snugly. So lots of fun fishing these through. Especially I have no fingernails, so, well, let's try to grab them like this. 1, 2. Okay, and you're gonna put the color sequence that you like on. You should have 6. There. And these come down and cinch along there and look very decorative. And I'm gonna do the other side. So I got my O-rings on here, and next I'm ready to work on my clasp. And I'm gonna use my jump rings and open up, and use my pliers and open up my jump rings and put them on the end of my cord terminators. These are glue-in cord terminators, or cord end caps. And this is, the interior is a 5mm, and my cord is 3mm, so it's 6mm, and that's great because I'm gonna really smush those in there. Got them cut evenly, lining them up, and I can use anything. I've got this, so I'm gonna use that as my poke tool. I take my E6000, make a little mess there, and I'll clean my Shrinkets pin in a minute after I'm done with this. I think what I like about this E6000 is it holds so well, but yet it peels off like silicone when it's totally dry. So here we go. We're gonna stuff those guys in here. And I'm turning and turning and pushing. I can hear it going into the E6. I can hear it squishing in there. Number 1 is done. And then I'm gonna put number 2. Line these up nicely. Twirl and push, twirl and push. Corkscrewing it on in. You can hear it and feel it gushing around in there. Make sure you get it all the way in there. Then we're gonna let this cure, and I want it to cure for 24 hours. But it's usually ready for the touch within 20 minutes. So this, I want to show you how nicely these little, this lines up here, and it would look good any way that these fall. And your body has movement, so this will have movement, and it just looks fun. Okay, there we are. Thanks for joining me.